on the elementary schools? Oh, I will get to her after. Let's get the update first, if you got it.
Yeah. So Creech Road and Davis Drive and Durant Road, the structural steel repairs, we did just do an update. It's on the website, and good news at Durant Road last week, we did complete the schedule, the work that needed to be done there. I toured the school this morning. All the classrooms are back in the way they're supposed to be, nice and clean. And so that scope is done. There weren't any contractors there, so we're very pleased with that progress. Davis Drive, that project remains on schedule, and we're still looking for occupancy by August 21st. And to go down some details, and what we had put in the update yesterday, there was a masonry was about 85% complete. I was out there this morning talking with the contractor, and they said they have since finished it. So masonry to include rebar and grout is complete. That's 100%. Also, the bond beam tab installation, that also is 100% complete. So we're very excited about that progress. The Sureboard installation, the prep and installation is about 75% complete. And the drywall repair and painting is underway. It's about 50% complete. And the final cleaning has yet to start, but I did see that they were doing some cleaning in some of the classrooms already. And as far as Creech Road, that too is on schedule, and it has a completion date of August 21st also. It's 95% complete with grout and rebar, and they might be 100% by now, but same for the bond beam tab installation. And the Sureboard installation is about 95% complete. Drywall repair and painting is about 50% complete. That is really as of this weekend. And the final cleaning is underway and is about 50% complete. We have asked the contractor to do two other things at Creech Road, and then Creech Road is really where all this started. We have asked them to make the effort of cleaning gutters, cleaning downspouts, cleaning storm drainage system, and confirm that it is all functional. We did know that there were some problems in that work, and it's very possible that could be related to our issue, which is why we wanted the contractor to do it. And we are also doing soil borings to look underneath the slab to see what kind of compaction the soil is, bearing capacity that they're achieving, and to see what, if any, steps we need to take there. We're anticipating that we'll need to do something, but this information will help us as to what that will be. That is separate work, and we'll be working with the AHJ, with the county on permitting and things like that, but we're not there yet. But did want to get that scope. So we're in really good shape. We're very pleased with the progress that's been made.
Good. Any questions? All right, thank you for that update. And before we go on now, Dr. Taylor, I think you'd like to introduce somebody, and then I'd like to give Mrs. Hill an opportunity to introduce herself.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair / Chair of the Facilities Committee. And we have with us Veronica Hill. She is our new Chief of Facilities, and we are absolutely excited to have her here. The great thing that we liked about her is the extensive experience that she had in both Frederick County, Maryland, which has about, I think, 50,000 students, 80 schools, and then Montgomery County, which is almost a mirror to Wake, 225 schools with about 150,000 students. So she's had an opportunity to come and be here her second day, and she has not left. And so been engaging with staff, but Mrs. Hill, just so glad to have you here. I'll just give an opportunity to share a few words and anything that the board would want to ask.
All right. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to join Wake County Public Schools as the Chief of Facilities and Operations. I recognize the scale and complexity of not only this role, but this district. And I'm excited about the opportunity to serve alongside such a talented team. The work of Facilities and Operations touches every student in every school, from the environments to where students learn, to the buses that gets them there safely, and the meals that fuel their day. Operation is not simply a support function. We're a strategic partner in student success. So my focus over the next coming weeks and months will be on service accountability and continuous improvement. Listening to our schools, supporting our teams, measuring our performance, and finding better ways to deliver. I'm looking forward to learning from each and every one of you, building on what's working, addressing what's not working, and together creating and sustaining a high-performance work organization. Thank you for having me.
We are excited to get you down here from the DC area, suburbs. We always like people coming from those big districts and sharing their knowledge with us, so we look forward. Please be here for a long time. We're not going to have questions. We're going to let her get settled. You guys can ask questions another day.
So, Mr. Chair, she might say this is the perfect time to ask questions.
Oh, no. We open that door, we'll be on questions for about 45 minutes. No, we have some great items in our Facilities Committee meeting today that I'm super excited about. So we want to kick it off with the Ligon schematic design presentation. And would you like to introduce everybody? Make sure everyone knows who the architect is.
Yes, I will definitely do that. First, I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to present the Ligon schematic designs. We do have with us today, my team is here. I have Alice Reese, who is our senior site planner, as well as Elizabeth Wakeford, who is our senior building planner. And we are also very fortunate today to have our architect team here, I want to give Catherine Pill, who's with LS3P, and I'd like to give her an opportunity to introduce her team.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for having us. A couple of folks that have been really instrumental this summer in gathering the history and the legacy of Ligon Middle School, formerly J.W. Ligon High School. Ms. Carmen Coffin, who many of you have met, she is a historian and wrote a book previously on neighborhoods in Southeast Raleigh and has just been doing a terrific job of interviews, research. I think he even went to Nashville to do some digging, and she's going to talk a little bit about the background and what she's been learning. And then Kayla Sparks joined us for the summer. Kayla recently graduated from Savannah College of Art and Design and Interiors and Architecture and is going on to Pratt for her degree in Historic Preservation. She had two siblings go through Ligon, and her mom's on the PTA, and we just got lucky. All the stars aligned, and Kayla was available for an internship this summer, and so this was just right up her alley, and she has been working with Miss Carmen all summer. How many alumni have you talked to?
Well, I've called, 200?
Wow.
But not everyone has picked up. But I've had good responses.
So once we get into the presentation, we'll let you tell them a little bit more about the work that they've done. And Kayla's actually put a really beautiful document together of her summer experience. So we were just really lucky to get her this summer to work with us. So, yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, we'll just go ahead and start. Just a reminder, we are still early in the design. The design team is still working heavily through the process. So we are at a point, though, that we have laid out all the program on the site. We still do have a few challenges with some of our athletic fields, but we are working through those as we speak. But I wanted to turn it over to Catherine and let her go ahead and start walking you through.
Okay. And I'm going to let actually Carmen start and let her talk a little bit about just how she's, sorry.
Well, we want her to come to the table.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's scoot over here.
Why don't we get Carmen and Kayla to come up here if you can. I'll let y'all sit right here.
No, Mrs. Hill.
Come on. You don't get the lead.
So thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you. I have brief remarks. Most of what I want to share is on the slides. But when I spoke to the board in March, I asked that Ligon's history be preserved with integrity. And so since then, my work has been devoted to making sure that that happens, to make sure that history helps to inform this building project. And those of you who don't know, I wanted to be an architect when I was growing up, so this has been really fun. So first, go back to the first slide. When we had our first meeting, I gave every member of the Legacy Committee a card and asked them to help in one of these ways. To either be a trust builder, someone who could create space for people to honestly share and openly share their feelings. To be a connector, to help us to identify people and stories that we needed to know about. To be a story carrier, that's what I am. To be sure that we were bringing forward the things that mattered and the things that needed to be remembered, and to be a bridge builder, to carry voices from the community, to bring them into that room where the Legacy Committee was meeting. And everybody agreed. And so I think when you go on to the next slide, I've been doing this. We've been assembling a historical record, not just going online and finding newspapers, identifying the assembly of the more than 11 parcels of land that were created or were used to build that campus. And that led me to Nashville. There was something in one of the newspaper articles called talking about a Peabody report, which I had never heard of. That Peabody report had been commissioned in 1946 by Jesse O. Sanderson to look at the entire Raleigh City school system. That report had said that the Negro community was pretty settled in South and Southwest Raleigh. But the newspaper articles were saying that the black community did not want a school built where they were talking about putting it. And so I needed to read the report, and I found two close copies, one in Charleston and one in Nashville. So we went to Nashville and got a copy of that report, and it turns out that the community wanted the school nearer to St. Aug, off of Tarboro Road. It seems that the city Housing Authority had just finished building Chavis Heights, and they had 14 acres of land left. The school board, the Raleigh Housing Authority, both were appointed bodies of the city council. So I haven't finished digging into the city council minutes yet, but I believe that I can say from a planning perspective that I believe that land that was left over from building Chavis Heights was sold, I'm sure at a much less rate than they would have had to go and buy land straight out, to the school board, and they only had to acquire another 4 acres of land. And that is how the 17.39 acres of land were assembled for Ligon. But we've been able to document the roles of black landowners. We've been able to confirm these things. And so we have a black high school that was built and opened in 1953 based on that information. Next slide. This is just a little bit of the minutes where, for those of you who don't know, I came and spent about 4 days going through minutes to see what the actual process was. So Fred Carnage, who was the African American on the board, was the person who determined the name for the school. And this is just a copy of the minutes from that. The first commencement exercises, a picture of that, and this was a picture on the invitation for that first commencement. Next slide. We're continuing to do oral histories. We've done one oral history with Mrs. Dolores Revis, who is the last teacher there who actually went to Ligon and then St. Aug, and then came back and taught there. She is still living. She is 90. We have hers. We have several other short, and we'll be doing some longer. We've been collecting artifacts from people, we put together a list, and as Kayla said, she's called, made a couple of hundred calls, and so we have some other folks to talk to from that. We've collected school board minutes, yearbooks. Somebody came and handed me yearbooks that evidently had been in Mr. Sanderson's office at some point, and people were throwing those in the trash can, and somebody from central office called and said, hey, do you want me to keep these? And so we've gotten those as well. Newspapers, Peabody Report, all of those types of things. Next slide. These are the things that the community has said need to be remembered. And this is overall, this is not just alumni. When I talk about community, I'm talking 73 years of folk that we've been talking to. It was an educational community. Ligon teachers still have high expectations for their students, and they always did. Relationships were very important throughout the community, not just the school relationships. Leadership was expected. Arts and culture were essential then, they are now. They are a hallmark of Ligon today. And there was a collective identity. When you say Ligon, people have a feeling. They have a feeling of hope. They have a feeling of expectancy. And so I think that we want to translate that. And one of the goals that I have is making sure that the educators who left Washington and came to Ligon are recognized in some way. So one of my suggestions has been that the schools, the classrooms, be named after these teachers, and not just a name plate, a picture and a small bio be attached to these classrooms, so that we transfer that, the specialness of these educators who started out. And I think there's one more. My responsibility. These are my 4 hallmarks. I tell the truth. The work is always underway because history, we continue to learn more as we go on. History belongs to every generation. So while I've had to share with some alumni, yes, it was a high school, it was a junior, senior, but then it was a junior high, and then it was a middle school. And so all of that, there's 73 years worth. And when I'm talking to the design team, Catherine says, what do we want people to know in 50 years? So we're looking for 125 years out of this school. And trust is the foundation of the work. And so my goal is to help people remember, at least to trust me, whether they're mad at me or not. To trust that I'm going to tell the truth, whether it is complicated or whether it is easy. And in that vein, I do have a little bit more of a report for you all, and I will pass that out. There also, in this, there should be enough for all of the board members to have one, because I know that there are students from every district at Ligon. And also, I have included in there a copy of the design report that I gave to the design team to look at based on a preliminary start. I think there's also one for Mr. Taylor. Dr. Taylor. Thank you.
Carmen, I'd like to let Kayla have a few minutes as a student and an intern and how she's worked this summer, just to give y'all a little bit of, if that's okay, have her speak a little bit to her experience.
Thank you guys for letting me be here today. This summer I've worked very closely with Carmen, and we've done a lot of community outreach, and one of those things were those phone calls that we talked about. So I've talked to alumni as well as current parents, and just kind of asking them what their connection to Ligon is and what they see for the future of the school. And kind of also answering questions that people have around Ligon and giving them that clarity and that transparency that people are looking for. So I created this document that kind of compiles all the responses I received this summer and summarizes all of them, as well as talks about the history of the school and kind of its timeline through it being a high school to junior high to now middle school. And within that, looking at what Ligon currently has in the school, doing site visits and site analysis, and documenting the different types of history that they already are showing in the school and how we can enhance that and also preserve that for the new school. And then lastly, our artifact collections, where we're trying to reach out to alumni and community members to collect things that can be on display in the new Ligon School or incorporated in graphics or different design features. So we've had 2 artifact collection events, and unfortunately, we haven't gotten any physical people to show up, but we did get a mail-in for our first one. However, we're hoping that with continued outreach that people can kind of grow in that trust to want to give things to Ligon or want to kind of talk to us or engage. And we've also received over 200 donations from Ligon Middle School itself, from their bookkeeper, Jane Clark. And so she was able to give me artifacts dating back from 1939 to Washington School before they even transitioned into Ligon. So we have a lot to work with, and I'm hoping that even when I leave this summer, that history continues to be uncovered and the outreach continues within the community, because I think that is really the key to the design for the new building. And
Awesome. Wonderful.
Before we keep going, does anyone have any questions?
I have a comment.
Chair Swanson.
Thank you. Thank you both for doing the work, and I know, Ms. Carver, you and I have had some conversations and some intense conversation about the work, but the trust is there, and I think that speaks to the work and integrity that you have to make sure that this history is preserved. And I would just say, I think you all have set the bar high as we move forward with other schools that are historic, such as, you know, either West Carryard or others across here, where that history and that legacy is there. How do we accurately tell the story, build the trust? So I hope that this is a model that we can use in the future as we begin to look at future renovations and projects. So I just want to thank you all for being bold in this and to challenge us to do what is always best. And so thank you, and thank you for spending your summer with us and doing some of this great work. And I'm confident that the next 50 years the history will show how we took a trying situation and made the best with it. And I am confident that when students walk into the new Ligon, they will be able not just to see the past, but their future and their kids' future into this. And so I'm excited, and I just want to say thank you for doing this work and leading your gifts and talents to us. And that, you know, the process is always challenging, but in the end, I always love to say there's some great, beautiful, creative tension that comes out of moments like this. And so thank you. And finally, I'll just close by saying thank you for pulling those minutes, because I spent some Fridays here digging through here and reading the minutes, and it just felt like you were in history. As a nerd and lover of history, I could not necessarily stop reading the books, and also trying to figure out when did the school system merge, and seeing the disconnect between the Raleigh City Schools and the Wake County schools. Really, this is a beautiful project, and I'm just excited to see where we go from here. So thank you for being that truth keeper and that storyteller. Thank you both.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, let's keep
All
going.
right. Well, with that being said, let's go right on into the schematic.
Get into our schematic presentation. This is a slide you've seen before when we came to you back in, I think, May, around just the existing Ligon site. It's 17 acres. Again, it's small compared to the standard of 24, so we've got a tight site. We do have a lot of topography, as we've discussed before. 40 feet of drop from Lenore Street down to MLK. We are going to be keeping that existing school occupied during construction, so we know that safety and security is going to be vital, and the construction fencing and signage and everything will be essential. As we talked before, we're going to be raising that ball field site approximately 10 to 12 feet. So for the first phase, which is going to start next summer, we'll be bringing in lots of dump trucks of dirt to raise that site up. And then again, we are moving where the buses come in and where the cars come in to really make sure that we're addressing the City of Raleigh traffic requirements for this site. Currently, the school only has about 600 feet of queuing distance length. If you're on Lenore Street, when the school is letting out in the afternoon, you're going to see cars backed up all the way down Lenore Street. We have in our preliminary design around 1,700 linear feet of stacking. So it's going to make quite a difference in getting the cars off the street. This next slide shows the first phase of construction, which is going to be the new building, which is the navy color, shows the footprint. The buses, and this flips the side sideways just so it's a little bit easier to see the details. So Haywood Street runs along the upper side with MLK Junior Boulevard running along your left. So along Haywood Street, we have where the buses will drop off, and number 6 is that Haywood Street, what we're calling our legacy entrance, which will be coming in at the 2nd floor because Haywood is substantially above where that ball field site is. Even when raising it, there's still difference. The main entrance is number 5 down here. You can see that's where we're going to be coming into the main entrance, the administrative entrance. Number 2 shows where we're bringing the new car entrance in off of Church Street that loops around and does multiple loops back and forth to get us at 1,700 linear feet of parking. And then you see we have visitor and staff parking in the main lot there on number 3. Number 7 up here is that existing school again that will remain operational until 2030. So the next slide shows the completed site. And this is once we tear the old school down, which is up at the upper end here on the right. We'll be building a multi-purpose field with soccer, football, and a walking track, as well as a softball field. One of the items we've been able to incorporate into design as you move along Haywood Street is an amphitheater that will really make the grade transition to get you into the new school, and really is a nice opportunity for an outdoor classroom for Ligon. And so you see also where there's a basketball court in that area as well. The big challenge we have on this site is how skinny it is, and so if you go to the next slide, we really wanted to get a, next slide, we really wanted to get a full-size regulation track in, but it will not fit on this site, unfortunately. We turn it every which way, even if we turn it 90 degrees, there's not enough room between Haywood and Church Street to get a track in. So we put in the largest track we can get in. It will still have regulation length so that you can still run track meets there. It's just not the full-size regulation. So,
Ms. Rice, you have a question about that?
I do. Currently, where the track is right now, is it a regulation track?
no, they don't have a track now.
So
They use the
down
track.
in the field, so they
There's
just,
not a track there.
right, not a track, so it's, the field isn't the same size either, is it? Okay.
Right, yeah. The only place it would fit is where the new school is going, and if you look at the scale of that, it basically
Yeah.
would take that whole footprint up at the lower end.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it was the same size as the field, because I know it's just a field there. Right now, I just didn't know if they use it still. It doesn't have to be a track, but you know what I'm saying, they still send the kids out there to walk. Didn't know if it was the same size as the regulation as the field. Okay.
Do we know what the size of the track is at Chavis Park?
That's the one they've been using, right? So,
Yeah, sorry, I'll jump up here.
Yeah.
At Chavis, they have, it's not a regulation track either. It's, if you look at it, you can see that there's almost, it has the straightaway, and then it's built around a baseball field, so it's kind of odd shaped as well. But I have been speaking with the city of Raleigh since Chavis is right now in phase 1 of their master plan about an interest in creating that full-size regulation track and the joint use. And so we had a good conversation Friday with Parks and Recs, and I'm not sure the timing, the schedules aren't quite right, but we definitely got our foot in the door for that conversation, and we're looking forward to having more conversations.
I was just thinking, the school often uses the Ligon Park a lot for PE and other activities. The area has a strong tradition and history in running, the Raleigh Rockets team,
Yep, that's what I was about to talk about, yep.
and others. And I knew that the Chavis Park master plan was phased as well. So if there was an opportunity to work with the city to get a regulation-sized track as part of that expansion, that could be a good joint use project that would still give the school access to those facilities, even if we don't have it in the footprint.
Yeah, my only concern, I'm sorry, Chair. My only caution and concern to Mr. Haggerty's point is the fact that the history of running track and field is what my thought process is there, is around the rest of our county. or any of the other schools don't have a regulated field? And if so, how does this short sight the students there who have interest in track and field when they can't get the full experience of practicing what everyone else across the county has? And I think we just did a great conversation around trying to right some wrongs from the school being built from the very beginning. How do we stop the discontinuation of the students still not getting what they deserve?
And I did speak with athletics. There's only 2 schools in this conference for middle school that have track. So that's why we're definitely, like Mr. Hagerty said, opening that door and that conversation with Raleigh, knowing how important it is. As Catherine said, the running or the walking track that we can fit, you can do the 100-meter dash and the straightaways. It is 400 meters for PE use every day. We've spoken with Brian Glendenning. He's good with that. And we can also have some opportunity to fit those field events on the site, so long jump, high jump, and shot put, so that the Ligon students get as much as we can cram into the site out of it. We do understand the importance, as you said. Yeah.
Thank you.
We just need about 7 more acres.
We're at friends in Raleigh.
One other quick question, then we're going to keep going, Ms. Caulfield.
Yes, I was just curious how short we were to being the distance that we want for these students.
Well, you can see up here how much this field gets up into Haywood and here. When we turn it sideways, it overlaps into the street as well, unfortunately. So, yeah.
And also with that, there's the grading. There's a tremendous amount of grading that we have to do between the streets that are existing and to fit that track in.
Even if we tried to turn it, because the grade drops about 20 feet from here to here, we would have a 20-foot high retaining wall to try to hold that track up if we tried to turn it the other way. So it's challenging. Let's see, next slide, I believe, this is the first floor classroom building. Very compact. We have all of our core spaces located to the right here. So when you come in the main entry, you have dining, admin, theater, gym, and your arts classes. So this works very well for night events because we can lock off the classroom wing and we have all of those core facilities located together. So you'll be coming in, again, from this side at the lower level, and then the next slide shows you the second floor, where you'll be coming in at the upper level off of Haywood into, again, this same central lobby space. And then, again, the classroom building has a library on the second floor, and then the third floor, again, is more of the classroom. So all of the regular science, math, English classrooms are located in this classroom building. And then the next slide shows, this is one of the preliminary concepts of our, what we're calling our legacy entry off of Haywood. Again, this is schematic design, but we're really looking at the words legacy, community, and excellence as a theme for the school. Looking at a design of a fin system that would be not only this entry, but also at the main entry that would show images of alumni, images of students, and really, again, trying to capture, even on the outside of the building, some of the history of Ligon.
That's right.
This is gorgeous, by the way, but when we look at this and in comparison to the original things that we had around a pavilion, is that still something that you all have done, or have we now shifted?
The pavilion would be up between the two fields.
Okay,
That is
okay.
This is the entry to the main building. This is the
Okay,
main school building. The pavilion is the location of the original entry to Ligon, up off of Haywood Street. So we're preserving the idea of some of the building materials and creating a pavilion that would include not only some of the physical things that the school needs, like restrooms and storage for athletics, but also this open area underneath that could be used for community events.
that sounds fantastic. So just clarifying for me, when we saw the schematics and stuff, well, the design earlier, it was connected to what we possibly were thinking as to the school in the original? that we saw?
No, it's
Or
never
what we
been
saw in the pavilion, that was always the
It's always been
gym?
separate, yeah, because it's up at the field area where
Okay.
the field's been
I
on.
think some of the, where it was where the
It looked
main
like it was
entry is
connecting
today.
into the school, yeah.
Yeah, that's the main entry of Ligon today, is exactly where the pavilion is.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
I think we may have also showed an axis of the building.
Yeah,
We did.
yeah,
So
it's the
it was
pathway.
Thank you, Ms. Barnett. I knew I wouldn't, you know.
The pathways connect.
Yes.
Okay,
To
all
the new
right.
building, yes.
Yeah, it looks beautiful, by the way. And I gotta pay attention to my dishes.
And if I could add, again, this is a concept. You know, as we go through the design process, things adjust, things shift, and we get more feedback, and we respond to that. So just want to make sure everybody knows that it's a concept, but we'd like the feedback. You know, your feedback is very important and positive.
Were there any other questions? Chair Swanson, do you have a question? I can. Okay. Ms. Coleman?
Just in regards to the floor plan that you just showed, and forgive me if I'm mixing it with another plan that we saw, but one of my questions was, because they mentioned that the special education was going to be in a certain area, and I just wanted to know if they...
It's integrated. It's integrated. So you can go back one more slide. So the exceptional children's area, which are the self-contained classrooms, are located right here. And then the other special education services classrooms are throughout the school.
Okay, great, thank you.
Are we at the end of the presentation?
There was one more about the schedule.
You can do that, and then I'll.
So, the design for Phase 1 is getting ready to be, the full design's completed fall of next year. Phase 1 is going into the city of Raleigh this fall, which is for the work that's going to happen next summer, raising site. Then we will be bidding the full school project in October of 2027, starting construction in the spring of 2028, with the new building opening in the spring, summer of 2030. That's when we will tear the old school down and start ball field construction, and then all construction will be complete by the summer of 2031. It's our presentation.
The only thing that I would ask, and I'm going to ask this for Rock Quarry and every single project we do, is, you know, we have ever-rising energy costs, and so I would like to see us, whether it's finding grants, finding some excess money, is putting solar on everything. How it incorporates, I think, Ligon being a model school and having that excellence includes having forward-thinking energy production and solar, which is getting less expensive, and, I mean, our rates are just going to keep going up, and if we have to talk, I know we've talked about having a conversation with Duke Energy and all those things, but all these new buildings, you know, we owe it to taxpayers to, even if it's a little bit more upfront, to have long-term savings.
The school is ideally situated for solar, a lot of roof area facing south, and we can be at least solar ready.
Yeah, we're going to be solar ready.
Yeah.
We are building solar ready now, and now I want to get to actually having solar on every side solar ready. Ms. Rice?
Yeah, I think that anything, you know, that's about that environmental wellness piece that I love so much. Even with Mr. Hershey saying that, y'all know how I forget everybody's name. And so I'm all about environmental wellness. I would still like to know a little bit more information before you ask us to even vote on something like that, when we do final design or whatever we have to vote on. Solar sounds great, just like we talk about security sounds great, or putting all these bars, but there are other things to it. Is the sun really going to shine directly on that building and to even utilize what small cost benefits that you might gain with using solar? And I say that from the numerous homeowners that I know that thought it was a really great idea to do solar panels until it wasn't. Because they found out these little small things like that solar panels are great if you have a facility or something where the sun is constantly directly on it, and that's the only time that you say have cost savings. Thank you for shaking your head that I'm right, that we have cost savings. So I'm just concerned about if we pour that level of money into it. We can't determine what the sun is going to do to utilize the solar panels in its appropriate ways. And so I'm just curious, however we can do some environmental friendly stuff, I think is phenomenal. But if we do it, just what does that even look like? Who does the health, the weather study to see what does it look like? Be right there, but I think you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, if we're gonna do it, make sure it's gonna work.
So, Mr. If I could add, one of the things that I would share about solar and really the benefits that we get from it is mostly governed by the tax credits that the government is going to give you. And so when it becomes very profitable, it's because of legislation that they put in. And when that legislation goes away, that also changes the nature of it. So one of the things we can always be is solar ready. And at any point we know it is most beneficial to us, we can do that. And what I can also tell you is that at any point we install solar panels, they are going to be the most efficient that exist. But we also recognize that solar panel technology, like anything else, gets better over time. So that means that wherever we are at that point, we would be at the apex. But 5, 6, 7, 10 years, they could have a solar panel that's half the size and puts out twice the amount of energy. So it's good that we are looking forward and hoping that we will have good tax credits that will make it profitable. But we'll certainly come back and make sure you bring that kind of information as we make those decisions.
And I would add that on recent projects, we have had solar panels as a bid alternate, and we have accepted those bid alternates in some cases, and really would expect that we're going to be doing the same thing here.
This is a ways away too. So I don't want to get too deep. We're going on to the next topic unless you have one last thing.
Just one last little thing, when you do bring it to us, if you could bring the comparison, because sometimes we get the information, but I'd like to know, this is one way of doing it, and if we do that, this is just so we understand the alternatives, because with putting more equipment in means maintaining more equipment as well, so that also becomes
Exactly
an
right.
expense.
Yep. And we do the cost comparison, but 100% agree with you. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are moving on to really another great presentation on a number of projects coming up. All right? Ready?
Yes, sir. Dave, do you want to do the introduction, or you want me to just roll?
Go ahead.
I'll roll it. Good afternoon. Chairman Hershey, members of the board. Elizabeth and I are here to talk to you today about PRIMP and SNAP and MOLS and where those programs are within our office, current work that we're doing and work that we're looking to do in the future. If you go, PRIMP slide, thank you very much. So this slide represents, but if I could do it.
Thank you.
Yes.
This is John Bevan.
Thank you,
John is our
John.
Senior Director of Construction.
Appreciate it.
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
I don't get to see you. Right, I mean, you did what he told you to do. I just had to say, who am I talking to?
Okay. So we'll start with the PRIMP process, and the PRIMP projects. PRIMP represents partial renovation and improvement projects. And these are projects on existing campuses to help bring older facilities up to current standards. There's basically 3 levels of projects here: renovation, replacements, modernizations, and what we consider minor projects. So those are smaller scope, lower cost, shorter duration kind of projects. Renovations and replacements, larger, represent renovating or replacing a school. We're wrapping up at Fuquay Arena Elementary right now. It's complete. It's ready for students, ready for occupancy. This was a $39 million renovation and addition project, 18 months in duration. The addition allowed us to remove 16 mobile classrooms and 1 mobile bathroom trailer from the site, revamped the grounds around the area, and it's ready for the kids to occupy. Next on the list for renovations and replacements is Hunter Elementary. So this project is currently in the enhanced design narrative stage. We're looking for this to wrap up in January of '27. That'll be followed immediately by the full design, and looking for construction to begin in fiscal year '29. We've budgeted $64 million for this project. We arrived at that based on the $39 million that we spent at Fuquay Arena. That was several years ago, so a little bit of escalation in there, but the scope of this project is much larger. We're taking some of the buildings down, and we're changing quite a bit on the campus. So we're anticipating a little bit bigger project than we had before. We're working with Glenn's team, the school choice team, to evaluate the best swim location, so that hasn't been determined yet. Once we figure out where we want to send everybody, we'll let everybody know.
Yeah, let me jump in, on that. And as we go through the design process, we will confirm, what buildings stay, what buildings, go, and what that ultimate impact is going to be to the campus and to the students. And really the budget, we're hoping, is a worst-case scenario, because it's easier to transfer money after we don't need it, to other needy projects, as opposed to trying to find the money, to be able to finish a project. So that is the mentality going into it with regard to the budget.
And so the next level of prep project is a modernization. And these are projects that work within existing campus footprints to bring aging materials and finishes and systems up to speed. So first on the list for modernization was Wake Forest Elementary School. We were going to do an RFQ this fall for this, but the impacts from the structural repairs that we've had to do at Creech, Davis, and Durant have pushed this project out. And there's some slides after this one where I'll show you how the projects have been laid out.
Yeah.
We can go ahead and go here now.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's depicted here across the top in fiscal years, the green is the annual allocation or annual funding that is added each year. And if you go down under fiscal year '27, we started this year with $42 million. We allocate $5 million this year to unanticipated needs. These are projects that our strategic team works on. They're on the slide before. We'll get back to those in a second. Hunter's Design at $5.2 million. So you're subtracting the two red ones from the bottom. You come up with a running balance of 31.8. Go back up to the top, add the 20.9. There's your new starting balance. So keeping an eye on the running balance across the bottom, you see in fiscal year '29 we run out of money. Okay, after we kick off Hunter Elementary based on our original $64 million budget. So if you go ahead and click to the next slide. So what we've done is instead of moving the Hunter Elementary School project, we've moved the Wake Forest modernization out to fiscal year '30, as well as we've got modernization projects behind that for the next 3 consecutive years, yet to be named. We've moved those 3 out as well. At the bottom, there's another renovation, still to be determined. We've allocated $30 million for that. We tried to leave that in its original position. Okay, so this shows you why we had to move, or why we're looking at moving the Wake Forest Elementary School Modernization Project, is to come up with the $6 million in funding for the repairs at Creech, Davis, and Durant Road.
Ms. Caulfield, did you have a question?
More of a comment question. This is in my district, and the whole time I've been on this board, I've been advocating for Wake Forest Elementary to get the attention it needs.
Right.
And it's over 100 years old. We have our kids going between 2 buildings, and it's now a magnet school. It's supposed to attract kids to this school. And it just keeps getting kicked down the road. So it's really disturbing to see that it's going to now get kicked another couple of years before they give it the attention that it needs.
Yeah, and I understand, we just don't have, there's not funding available for it. Now, there is a possibility we could look at doing a reallocation from another source and keep the project on track. Do you want to speak to that? Or?
Yeah, sure. Those are opportunities that we certainly look at. We couldn't bank on it. So we're showing you something we can bank on. We do have options and opportunities that we are pursuing, reimbursements from North Carolina Department of Transportation on projects that we feel our money due, or funds due. We have other potential savings from projects as we go along. Of course, we can't bank on that. So we do expect that we have several opportunities to be able to identify possible funds and be able to keep the schedule. But we're trying to show you a schedule that we can bank on. And if we can improve on it, we will. Because we're with you, we wanted to do the modernization project really as quickly as we could because we really want to get those projects started. It was very unfortunate as we went through, we looked at other possibilities and other demands, that we settled on this one. And I do think this is a worst-case scenario. You still see on fiscal year 29, we're showing, a negative balance of $1 million. Again, we expect that we will be able to find the money for that. And as John mentioned, potentially, more, and to be able to keep that schedule like we wanted it to be.
How quickly can you pivot if you find the money? If you say, okay, for a project like Wake Forest Elementary School, you say, oh, we do have the money, how long would it then take to get the project going?
So we have to identify the savings. In this case, let's say we have several projects that we just finished.
Say you have identified the savings.
And that era of projects. So there's several projects there. And as we are able to close those out, we're able to identify what that savings is. Then we'll be able to go through the transfer process, which is Board of Education approval, County Commissioner approval, and then we'll see if we accumulate $5 million.
What I'm asking though is, we've gone through all those processes, we have $5 million all of a sudden in 2028. How quickly do you then, Ms. Sharp?
Let me answer that. So we have already done the feasibility study for Wake Forest. So we already have a plan. We actually have the architect team that did the feasibility study right here with us, and I'll introduce them in just a few minutes. So we do have that already in place. So we will be ready to get up and running because we already have an overall scope of what that project will be. So we should be able, once the money becomes available, then we will be able to, we probably will need to do an RFQ because we will go over the $50,000 mark. And then we'll do a short RFQ, get them under contract, whatever architect gets that, and then start rolling with that project. So we already have that scope. We've already worked with the school. We've been doing that over the past year.
So if you start it from that point, how long does it take to finish?
So we will go through the design phase. So it will be a typical design phase. We'll go through and since we've already done the feasibility study, you've kind of already done the design narrative piece. So you'll jump right into what we'll call the schematic piece. And it will probably take maybe a year process depending on if we are going to need to get any site plan approvals. That's going to be the kicker. If we can do everything internally, it will move a lot faster because then it will only be building permits.
I'm going to follow up. Is there a reason we can't go through that process and get it right to the point where we have all the schematic design done and everything is completed, and then we're just waiting for enough money to get
To the construction.
Yes.
I mean, we can look at to see if we have enough in the design to get us design money in place.
The bottleneck is your fiscal year 29, where right now we're showing -$1 million.
Right, I got that, but
It'll just be worse.
I don't know how much everything costs. So if it's $400,000 to do the design, can we at least get to a point where we've gotten everything ready, as Ms. Caulfield has advocated for this? And that way, if we can't find $5 million and we find $2 million, at least it's going towards this project to move it along, so when we have the rest of the money, it's ready. Ms. Caulfield?
Yeah, could you clarify, just so I understand, in the 2 pages prior, it says that the modernization was for the fall of 2026. So that would be coming up soon.
That was for the RFQ. We were going to do the RFQ this fall for the
Right.
design team.
Okay. So you're saying the implementation is now going to be 2030, according to this chart here?
Correct.
So 4 years later?
Fiscal year 30 is the fall of 29, but yes, generally.
Yeah, it just seems like
So John, would you share what the timeline would have been not been for the prototype school.
Yes, if we didn't have the prototype school repairs, we would have gone ahead and kicked off the RFQ this fall, in the fall of '26, fiscal year '27. We just spent the money on the design, call it $500,000. We'd had all that together and ready so that in fiscal year '28, which is basically July of '27, get myself confused here, we'd be able to kick off the project and move forward.
Okay, and can I just follow up
Yeah,
one more
sure.
question? Can you tell me some of the things that they're trying to do for this modernization that would help this school that I'm just trying to put my head where you're waiting that long to modernize. I mean, I've been advocating for this to become a new school because it's like a pretty big historical school up in Wake Forest. So we put a new roof on, we're fixing things, we're doing a lot of Band-Aiding. So I'm just trying to find out, if we're waiting this long, what exactly are we doing that is going to bring this school up to where?
Well, we're going to look at everything from inside the walls. You're going to look at paint, you're going to look at new finishes, you're going to look at floorings. I know when they did the feasibility, the restroom floorings were in bad shape, so they would all be replaced. So it's basically going to be just, you'll see everything new from the walls in. So it's more of a visual. So the kids.
So it's not really construction, it's more making it look pretty,
Yes.
for lack of a better way to put it.
Would be replacing the finishes.
Ms. Rice?
Mine is really quick. I do hear Ms. Caulfield's concerns, and I do understand that we had an emergency, and I actually had that on one of my questions when I was looking is the why. But mine is on topic but off topic with Hunter to eliminate what we just went through with Ligon, and I see that you say it's fiscal year '27, which means fall of '26 or whatever, right?
Right.
Before you do your request for, which one, our RFQ? Is that one you're going to do first?
The RFQ for the designer,
Yes.
we've already
already
selected
have
a
this.
designer.
Okay, see, that's what I mean. Did you do any work in community to get a conversation so that you can, when you put that in the RFQ, to share the type of things so that the design team will know what's needed coming in, unlike what we just went through with Ligon? And this is the challenge that we keep having with these historical schools, that we're doing the process and then we'll have this uproar, and then you put me in the middle of it, trying to champion the district because we did not provide community first. So my question is, did you do this before you went and chose a construction team, a design team?
So all of that.
Did we do it or not?
That's not
okay.
when
We didn't do it? Okay, so that's fine. So since we didn't do it, it's fine. It didn't happen. It's okay. But before they move forward,
Yes.
let's learn from what we just went
I
through.
think Ms. Sharp was going to say that the design team is going to do that as the next step, but you want...
That's the problem. I'm still not being heard. That's the problem.
You think that we should...
That you're supposed to, you need to do it beforehand. My predecessor, who was on here before, was with, at the time, the chair, and at the time, our former facilities superintendent came together to say, hey, these things need to happen before you do this, so the community will not be in an uproar. If you get people on the front end so that this design team comes in with a thought process of what they need to have in mind, getting ready to do the work that they already know how to do, then it eliminates a lot of the fact that it was only after the fact that we had these challenges that our current past design team had to hire Miss Carmen. So we're supposed to be learning. I'm hoping that this department continues to learn from what we're going through. Our chair just said, hey, I hope this is a model in which we're going to do, and then here we are doing the same thing as if we're not learning as a learning institution. And so what I'm saying is, Hunter is just like Ligon. Exactly like Ligon, and that's your as a community. So if that is the case, then we need to do what we already know to do ahead of time, so we can move forward without me having to come back and host community meetings where I've got 100 people in a meeting, and then the superintendent has to turn right back around and hold district-wide meetings when he thought that the first set of meetings that he did was going to be the end of them, and having to come back and do the work again. I just want us to be mindful of that with the community in which I serve, and I want us to be mindful of what these schools have already gone through history. I don't want to be dismissed. I don't want to be not informed as I was with Ligon when we went through this process. If y'all recall, I never got an email. I didn't know anything about what we were doing, and it didn't matter that my child had died. I still should have been informed as a district person that represents that school. And so what I'm asking for is that while I think this is fantastic of what's going to happen, I don't want another fallout with community. I don't want us to have to do more things to fix and repair what we should have done in the beginning. And so that's what I'm asking for. I'm not asking to be fast talk. I'm not asking for any of that. I'm simply asking to respect the culture of this community, considering again that the same people who live in the community, children don't necessarily get to go there. So at least let them have an input of what it needs to look like from beginning unto end. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you, Chair. Oh, it's up to you. I'm just, it's up to you to respond.
Okay, so with this project, we've taken everything that you have said to heart. So our very first meeting with this architect team, we pulled in our community services, our communications department, and we sat as a team to determine how we were going to approach this project. So this architect firm learned on day one that this was going to be a sensitive project and it was going to be a different process. So we've had the principal involved, we've had communications involved, and so we have only had 2 meetings. And the first meeting was communications and how we were going to handle this project. And so we have been tight-knit with them, so that will be the process from here on out. So the architect team learned on day one, and when we chose them, they had to have some type of historical background where they've had to deal with a historical project before. That was one of the criteria. That was what was written up in the criteria for this project. So I just want you to know, we have learned from Ligon. And so this project on day one, that was our first meeting we held with the architect firm before we even kicked off the project.
Did you tell them to connect with Carmen?
Yes, I had a look.
Then I'm okay then.
Yes.
Because that's where my trust lies, as my community person.
Yes.
And as my community knows and trusts Carmen.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions about Hunter will be off,
Okay.
because we have to keep going.
Okay.
Ms. Gordon?
I have a very quick question. Of the 3 types of print projects, how is there a level of how we determine which ones come first, and how is that done?
Yes, so we held we got a group of individuals in all of the district, came together as a group, and we prioritized the list of projects. This was done probably a year, 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
So we prioritized the projects, and unfortunately with the money that we've gotten, we have not gotten very far in that list because we just haven't had the money to complete it. So we held, we had criteria, we did a whole prioritization rubric and scored them, and Ms. Caulfield is right, Wake Forest was on the top of the list. Unfortunately, we have not had the funding to do it. We did the feasibility study so we would know how much funding we were going to need to do that project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the projects you see here, the minor projects, they came in after that prioritization happened, but they're more of an emergency. So at the retaining wall at Wake Forest High School Stadium, it was damaged during a storm, it was falling, the road was going to fall down. We had to go in there and fix that one. So then, unfortunately, some of the other ones that we have prioritized get shuffled down.
Okay, and these are all based off of your your previous comment, these are all, when we're talking about PREP, they are all pretty much, not beautification, that's not the word I want to use, but they are more cosmetic.
Cosmetic.
Okay.
Some of them are.
Some of them are, because it
Like,
depends.
Yeah, so they're going to be structural repairs.
Yeah.
That's prep. What John had just referred to, was we had to make quick repairs to, so that we didn't have damage to a storm drainage feature, and which was, we had a road on top of this causeway that was going to be damaged, and so we had to quickly do a lot of, I don't want to say emergency repair, but we had to move quickly on that particular project too.
Does this list, I'm sorry, I have a problem.
Yeah.
I apologize. Does this list go beyond the?
Yes, this is not all inclusive.
Okay.
This is just kind of representative of the things we're currently working on.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to clarify on the chart, the unanticipated needs for each year, fiscal year. There's an amount that you're setting aside. Is that what you're doing?
Yes. We set that much aside in our budget, right, for the stuff like fixing the stadium retaining wall or fixing the sprinkler system at Roseville High School. Those are unanticipated needs that are going to need to be worked on during the year. And historically, that number's been $4 or $5 or $6 million a year. So that's what we've come up with that budget.
And historically, has that been used up every fiscal year?
Typically, yes.
Got it. Let's keep going.
Okay. Next slide, I'm going to let Elizabeth's going to jump in and talk about SNAP projects.
SNAP projects. So we are currently working on 2 major SNAP projects. Piney Plains renovation, and we're excited about this one because it really hits on some of our FD&C goals. We are looking at being more sustainable because we are taking an older building, that's a car dealership, and modernizing it and converting it to educational space. And then our second goal that it's hitting is it's taking 2 programs that were in a leased facility, and now we are housing them in a building that we own. That is, so that's very exciting to us. So the Piney Plains is going to house our Crossroads Flex High School, our SCORE Academy. It's going to also house a new security monitoring facility and a small regional maintenance facility. This is only going to build out a portion of that building. There will still be a shell of the building left that we can look at for other SNAP needs in the future. And moving on to Rock Quarry Road, I think most of y'all have walked Rock Quarry Road with us, so we all know that that has been a need for this district for a while. We have completed a very extensive feasibility study, and as you can see, and I'm not saying to demolish the whole site and rebuild it, but to do a few renovations and additions on that campus, we're looking at a $165 million project on Rock Quarry Road. And so what we did is ask the architect to break that up into phases, because you're going to see in the next slide, we have to stagger our money in SNAP in order to accrue enough money to be able to do these projects. Phase 1 is the bus garage. That bus garage is in dire need. So phase 1 is the bus garage, and what we're looking at doing so that we can keep Rock Quarry Road operational, because that is a hub, that runs Wake County Public Schools, so we need to keep it operational, and it is the most central part of Wake County. And so what we're going to do is, for the bus garage, we are going to build a new bus garage where some existing bus parking is. We're going to do kind of a flip site. I think y'all heard me say flip site, where they stay in their old building till we build the new building. Then we're going to move them into the new building, and then we're going to tear down their old building. And we're going to turn that into the bus parking down below. The majority, all these other phases are going to be handled in the same way. Our architect team, who did our feasibility project for us is here today. It's Oakley Collier. And if you would like to introduce your team who worked very hard on this project, yeah.
I'll be glad to, and I'll just, I'm Ann Collier with Oakley Collier Architects first. Jennifer Starkey is an architect with an office in Hanover. And then Keith Downing with CLH is also on our team. So this is the team, and we've had others in the background, but this is the primary team that's reviewed the site. We're excited to be here to talk about it or answer any questions. It's a really major space for the county. I know it's not a school, but it is the central operation, so it's about the hub of the school system, and it did have a lot of needs that we found.
Can we just very quickly skip some slides and go to slide 12? So we can talk through, since we're talking about Rock Quarry.
Yes, so I did want to let everybody know, I asked Ann's group to come today because I thought that y'all would have some
Let's do
detailed
this now,
questions.
and
Yep.
then we'll go back to mobiles. And
That's
we've got
right.
about, we're going to wrap up this whole presentation in 10 minutes.
Okay.
We have a very important topic after this.
Ann, do you want to come? Sure. Okay, great.
Another, okay. By the way, this to me is such an important project for the school board. They've done I've been pushing this a lot, I know my colleagues have. It's, for the public that doesn't know, this is something that probably would have been done if we weren't building so many schools.
Right.
But we've had to build so many schools. This is about our staff, the transportation staff. The buses don't fit in the garage because buses have gotten longer over since that bus garage was built. So this is much needed, and I do want us to be sharing this news with staff there, that this is coming. I know it's not going to be built as fast as we all want, because it's a big project and we're going to have other needs, but just please let them know that we are committed.
Yes.
I am committed, at least, to
Yes.
this, and I'm really, really excited and really thankful for this one.
Great.
Yeah.
Leah actually shared that. Leah is also part of the team. She is our facility planner. I didn't want to forget Leah sitting over.
We emailed all the directors at Rock Quarry just to share the study, and you all will also be shared the study sometime.
That's right.
Please make sure they let non-directors know too, make sure everybody knows over there. Okay, let's go through these real quick.
Okay. Do you want to walk through the site and where the additions and...
Sure, I will. So generally, and a couple of just keynotes we found, and we'll be brief, that we interviewed all the folks on the site first. We said we need to walk the site, we need to talk to all the people in each department to find needs out. So that took quite some time, because there are 16 departments that we counted. I think there could have been a few more sub-departments in there, but we did speak with directors and staff of every group to ask needs. And so the next thing is, we also questioned, is this the right location for this operations? Because that was the first thing. If we're not in the right location, then we need to be rethinking this. And every single one said, yes, this is central in Wake County. It's easy to get around to all the places we work, we go, we service. So we took those two things and then kind of ran with it. And so, again, and I walked site with some of you, so I do remember us walking through, and it was just amazing to us, too. And the reasoning that this is happening, or needs to happen now, is because the system has grown so much. You have so many more schools than when this was originally done, so obviously all things you know. As Elizabeth said, the first phase is the new bus garage on the right-hand side of the screen. It is built directly behind the existing, as she said. The need for that as priority one was simply because it does not work well the way it operates now. The buses do not fit, they've gotten longer, so the doors are open summer, winter, all year long to work on buses, and many other things about that building. So we would build right behind it and then tear down the existing and then redo the fuel stations in front along with phase one. So all of those services that operate together are done at the same time. And eventually then, as we finish that, we would move up, because another thing that we saw, two big requests were sometimes different groups were spread throughout different buildings, so we want to get all the administrative groups together in one building. So we propose a new administration building on the left-hand side. That would be phase 2. In addition to, and there's some meeting space that was required a lot. There were a few meeting spaces that were used very highly. The second piece of phase 2, though, is the safety transportation folks. That's where they live right now. So they live in that front parking lot. We understand there is a cycle of cars for an hour and a half, morning and night, every day. For 236 cars or something like that come through that lineup at the same time, every morning, every afternoon. So we proposed, let's fix that. So we need to keep them on site. We want to put a new administration building, build it up. If you think about, we internally said, you know, like an airport terminal, so we build it up and we're driving under it for this transportation to happen. And then the offices are above that. And the safety group would have their offices on that main floor. And we're probably a 3-story building, I think, in this group to handle all the administrative. So phase 2 is that. And then with that, obviously, new parking layouts and all the circulation changes. We flipped circulation a little where now a lot of folks come in and go to the right, which is causing some of those issues. So now we're going to flip and go to the left for a lot of the grounds and maintenance and all of the bus garage folks. So that is that. Along with this phase 2, part of Building B gets renovated. The front office space that's now vacant will be turned into new meeting rooms, so we're meeting that need in phase 2. And then for phase 3, a large need was also in the warehouse. We're combining spaces, they're bringing other groups in there. The print shop will move there. Technology will move there, and then child nutrition will expand. And then the purchasing, all the warehouse pieces will also be renovated and reconfigured. So we're almost doubling the size. We're also creating a new purchasing yard. If you remember from your walkthrough, that's the area where all of the Quonset huts and ERD, a lot of the
All those crates.
crates, that it was just a mess, to be frank. And so that all gets cleaned up. That was excess materials that we're just going to clean that up, and we're going to build this building and not give them more space to put that kind of stuff, but give them space to organize. So those are the 3 phases, I think, that are before you. Phase 4 and 5 deal with the maintenance operations, which is in the very center of the site. We did talk a lot about, is that in the right location? But it really is, because of all the central pieces it serves. So there are open shops to a dock space, and you think about plumbing and maintenance and security, and other groups like that, housekeeping and custodian, they all come there, pick up their materials, and leave. So that still operates generally like it is. And because we're pulling administration and other groups out into purchasing and admin, they have room to expand in their building. So that phase would tear out some walls and give more space as needed. And then phase 4 would be the existing auto garage, which is in the other center part of the site. And again, that's much like the bus garage. It has some woes. It still operates fairly well, but the building is old. So we would upgrade that, add a bay if need be, but that would be phase 4. So that's a quick summary, but
Ms. Rice.
Question, may or may not be relevant. I love the schematics that you have for them. What about even the internal for the employee wellness and stuff that's there? Their break areas, their bathroom areas that I know need to be addressed.
Yes.
And improved. So I think that the building and everything externally that you've talked about is very nice, but I also want to ensure that the staff that's in that building get to have better use of their wellness things that they need that are necessity to have a workplace. That school with the AC units and all those things be fixed. Their bathrooms will be new and fixed and all that stuff, right? Okay.
We considered all that in our budget.
Yes. Perfect. Just, you have to ask sometimes, we talk about the external parts, the big things are really great, but, people having a better working condition is what I'm looking at most importantly for everybody that comes in and their space for waiting, if they're waiting on something and not just the people who work there. Right? Okay, all right.
And thank you for putting these timelines together. I've been advocating for long-term facilities planning. This is for Mrs. Hill, so she knows that I've been doing that. And we've been talking about going out 20 years, and that can be tough, but this is the kind of planning that, as we peel off the school board in the future, other board members come in and it's a set plan, and they see the work that needs to be done, and it's on the calendar, so it gets done. So I love this, and I'm very thankful that you're able to do Piney Plains and Rock Quarry at the same time, so Tyler and I weren't going to have to arm wrestle to see which one we have to do.
It's a competition.
Because we wanted them both, and we were really worried that we were going to have tough conversations, so thank you for working that out as well. I mean, this is fantastic work, and we're not going to talk any more about that. We're going to go to mobiles, because this is also very important. We've got 5 minutes, and then we've got a very
I
important...
lived there when we built Rock Quarry.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, I'm old. I told y'all, I am Wayne County, y'all just will not believe me. I've been here longer than any of you guys. Yes, I lived there. I watched the building being built. I lived right there in, the apartments right there beside it.
That's kind of more.
Yes. I was walking my walk to Rock Quarry, to Chavis, the statue and stuff. I was there when they built the building.
All right, let's go mobiles.
Yeah.
Okay, just a quick update on mobiles and where we're headed. I know a big focus for the board has been, what can we do for the folks that are in mobiles, that are stuck in mobiles, if you will, and what can we do to reduce the number of mobiles we have on site. We do have 2 major projects that are moving forward. We're actually relocating mobiles from 2 sites. We're moving in 2 8-classroom and 2 6-classroom units, 1 of each to Wake Lawn Elementary. This will add 14 classrooms to that area that they have capacity needs. So it opens up this fall 26. We're a little bit delayed due to municipality approvals. Their UDO didn't have a method to approve modular or mobile installation on a campus. So we had to petition them to change their UDO, which the town of Zebulon did in a very quick fashion, but it pushed us back a little bit. So we should wrap that up in about November. 27-28 school year, Carver Elementary will also receive an 8 and a 6 classroom mobile. That's currently in design. On the modernization front, we're working through an RFQ now for a condition survey. So this is similar to what our Life Cycle group does when they go out and they do condition surveys on our brick and mortar buildings. We're going to do condition surveys on our mobile classrooms. This is part of our ongoing effort to prioritize and modernize the mobile classrooms that aren't going to be removed or brick and mortar put in their place. So places like Olive Chapel, where there's not an immediate plan to enlarge the school and house those children in there. What can we do to address the mobile conditions? So we're moving forward with those. The minor projects are basically the removals and what's been happening there. Some of these are project-driven, so at Athens Drive, we've removed 3 of the 9. The other 9 will come off as that project completes. At Wake Forest Middle School, there were 5 that were out in the parking lot that they didn't need, so we took those 5 away. The 9 still remain back behind the school. Westlake Middle School, we're taking all 12 of those out. North Garner Middle School, that's a project. All 5 of their mobiles have come away. Rock Quarry Road, there's 9 mobiles up. Well, there's 7 classrooms over there and 2 bathroom trailers over there. Those 9 are going away. Durant Road Middle School, the 10 mobiles that are there. We never paused that project, although we did hesitate for a second because we weren't sure if we're going to have to use them for a swing space for the Durant repairs. Obviously not needing to do that now, so they're still coming out on schedule. And then at Farmington Woods, there was a single classroom that was in the way of the town wanted to complete the water loop around the back of the building to connect the 2 fire hydrants together to get better flow. So that one they didn't need, so we've taken that one out. 26-27 school year, so at the beginning of this year, we had removed 54 classrooms. 2 of those were lease units. And at the beginning of the 27-28 school year, so next summer, we'll have removed an additional 42 classrooms, 14 of which will be leased units.
Thank you. We're going to move forward, but what I'd like to have happen is come back, maybe September, talk more about the condition survey and assessment so we can kind of hear about how long that is, where money is coming from. That's a big, important conversation, and I want to spend a little bit of time on that. That's something that I want the public to be well informed of, because we do have a lot of students, unfortunately, in Mobile, and we want to make sure we're taking care of those students. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon. So today we're here to follow up from the June 2nd board work session. There was a discussion about Hillburn Academy. Today I'm joined by the principal, Dr. Caswell of Hillburn Academy, our long-range planning department, Ms. Jordan and Ms. Nguyen, and Ms. Paulina from student side. So we can skip ahead to just slide 3, because I know there's a lot of review slides on here, and I know there's going to be a lot of discussion regarding this, so we'll just kind of skip through some of the review slides. But to just kind of give you the goals for today's session, we're going to review our planning process, but we won't really go through all those slides. We do want to provide you some background information on the 6 through 8 program at Hillburn Drive Academy. We're going to give you an update on the recent community engagement. That's the thought exchange you had asked us to do at the board work session, and then provide some input and guidance on next steps. All right, we can skip ahead to slide 13. 13, please. And just as a follow-up to your last conversation about trailers, we did want to give you some additional insight to the particular mobile units that are planned to be moved in the future in this particular part of the county as well. So as Mr. Bevan talked about, Durant Road Middle School, we're removing those 10 units. We also have some 8 classroom units at East Millbrook Middle School that are planned to be removed at some point during the 27-28 school year. And then Leesville Elementary and Middle School, where some of those units were used for the Carver Wakelon project as well. So we are looking at projects where we're removing mobile classrooms in areas where we don't have high growth. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more as we talk about the situation with Hillburn. Okay? All right, we can skip ahead to 18. All right. So this is a really important slide because, as you know, there are many levers that we use as part of this process when we deal with long-range planning. So we look at our projected growth, we look at our forecast, and that drives a lot of the different steps that we've talked about in the earlier slides here. Then we get to the nearby crowding relief. So can we utilize neighborhood schools, proximate schools to help deal with a crowding concern or provide relief to some of those schools? In this particular case with Hillburn, all of the middle schools in the surrounding area, they're all underutilized as well. So we wouldn't be able to just take students from the neighboring schools and use them to fill Hillburn Elementary. Then we look at mobile units. Where do we need them? Do we need them for crowding? Do we not need them anymore? And so we've talked a little bit about that. So we've utilized that lever. There are mobile units on the Hillburn Drive campus already, generally housed mostly the middle school, I believe, right now, correct? Some elementary too? Okay. And then we're going to talk about like the brick and mortar capacity at the school as well. And then calendar optimization. I mean, so you've seen this in recent months where we're looking at taking multi-track year-round schools, bringing them down to track 4 or traditional because we just don't have the need for the extra seats, as well as the additional costs that are utilized by the district when it comes to operating a multi-track year-round school. Okay? So this brings us to the last lever, and this is probably the hardest lever to pull, because this is the most impactful on the district when you start looking at program adjustments. So this is moving programs or eliminating programs or whatnot, and this really does impact students and families and staff. And so if these were easy solutions, we probably would have done them much earlier. We are not at that point anymore where we can continue to use the other levers ahead of us, so we need to start exploring some of these options. All right, so background information on Hillburn Drive Academy. So Hillburn Drive Academy expanded to 6-8 back in 2011. We had ideas that we were going to be building a new school in the area. We had overcrowding at the time. We couldn't wait for that crowding to come. So instead of putting just mobiles on the campus, we decided that we could expand to a 6 through 8 to provide the extra capacity for that school until we got that school built. As you can see, in 2016, Pine Hollow opened. That was the school that relieved that crowding in that part of the county. Pine Hollow Middle School then opened up as a multi-track year-round school, and then in 2025, we just reduced it from a multi-track year-round to traditional. In the meantime, we had slow rolled that, the growth of Hillburn. We started with 6th grade, moved to 6th and 7th, and then 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then you'll see in the chart, when we look at the enrollment over time, you can start to see the impact long-term of having the additional seats in the area. Okay. So here we are. So in 2012-13, that was the first year that we had grade 6 at Hillburn Drive Academy. And this chart here shows you the blue is grade 6, red is grade 7, and orange is grade 8. And then the enrollment numbers. So you can see at its peak in 2014-15 had about 270 students enrolled in the middle school program at the school. And you can see if you look ahead to 2016-17, that was the year they had the impact of the opening of Pine Hollow. So over time, the numbers have continually declined over time. Again, impact of Pine Hollow Middle School being a major reason, but it's also, you look at the forecast, right, over the years. This part of North Raleigh hasn't seen explosive growth because this was one of the first areas that grew way back in the late 80s, early 90s, okay? So you started to see areas through this period, your West Cary, your Southwest, your Apex areas, even your Fuquay, Holly Springs areas were growing through all of these years as this area was starting to decline in numbers over time. So here you have a chart that shows you the blue is the brick and mortar capacity of the school, and the red is it includes the trailer capacity or flexible capacity. Say again?
And this focuses just on the 6th through 8th grade program, and the capacity is set aside for that.
Thank you. So as you can see, again, this just shows you that we have available seats in the brick and mortar capacity. As time has gone by, we don't really need the additional flexible capacity on the site, okay? And many of you have seen, the forecast is just saying, from the airport all the way across the north, we're just not seeing that growth that we once had, 15, 20 years ago.
And we have a technical correction on this side. The darker blue boxes to the right actually are the 6th through 8th program. We are correcting that, and we'll get it to Sandy so she can upload the materials and to Melissa. But the darker green actually represents what you saw on the 6th through 8th. So the light blue is the K-5. Just to give you a view of how the whole school is being utilized.
What's the difference between the 2nd and 3rd columns and the 5th and 6th columns?
So school crowding is brick and mortar.
Okay.
Campus crowding would include any type of flexible capacity, including trailers or modular units.
Perfect, thank you.
So as you can see at the elementary level, we do need some of those extra units because the middle school's, taking up the seats, but at the middle school, they don't need the trailer units to support the whole program. Not to say that they're not, because I think some of the CTE programming might be out there.
So you've seen a slide similar to this before when we've looked at calendar conversion. So when you operate a school on a multi-track year-round calendar, there are definitely months of employment that we pay extra out of pocket. This year we did an analysis of if we assign the students to a different middle school as their base instead of Hillburn Academy, what would that potentially look like with regard to your budgeting? So as you can see, the middle column there is the estimated months of employment change for Hillburn Academy. So the minus would be they would lose those particular months of employment, and then they would be gained or left even on the right-hand column for the receiving school. So that would be the school that we would have assigned the students to. As you can see, there are many positions that will not be absorbed, that will not be taken on new at the new schools. In particular, your assistant principal, they lose a bookkeeping position, a clerical position. However, somebody like the counselor, because the number of students would be traveling to the new school, they would earn an additional counselor position, so that counselor could travel with the children. These are very hard decisions, because as you can see, these are affecting positions. And this is something that we don't take lightly. We know that you don't take lightly, and so we want to make sure that you understand, this fiscal impact, but also remembering that we're talking about staff as we make these decisions as well. We did discuss with transportation, there were minimal impacts on transportation because the current base attendance area for Hillburn is like a donut within the Leesville Road Middle School. If we were to consider Leesville Road Middle School as the school, that would be the receiving school, they wouldn't really have that much of a difference when it comes to the routing changes or filling the buses. And again, that would be assuming that all the students would continue to receive bus service. We do have some concerns possibly with like students who would be in a no transport zone who would then need bus service, but that would be something that they can consider to work out. But again, just overall a minimal impact on the transportation routing process.
Similar to other discussions we've had, more of maybe an additional run, but not necessarily an additional bus.
All right. So just kind of reviewing the middle school capacity in the region, I know many of you have brought this up on multiple occasions. We just have a surplus of seats in the area. I really want you to mostly focus on the projected available school seats in that middle column, the 1,005, because the column on the right, this is just for the upcoming school year, or the current school year now. The right-hand column doesn't account for some of the mobiles at some of the schools like in East Millbrook that we plan to move off in 27, 28. So really, even at its, just looking at the brick and mortar part, we still have a surplus of 1,000 seats in this particular area. And as you know, the forecast will only assume that that will grow because we're just going to have some aging in place in these particular neighborhoods. We don't have a lot of new residential growth coming in. So community engaged update, I'll leave that to Ms. Boyd.
So at your request, we did engage the public, albeit in a weird time. It was sort of June 12th-ish to July 19th-ish. We did try to put as many reminders out to the families. We did direct messaging from our office. We also invited the principals to do some direct messaging using their messaging systems, but as they noticed, we were out of school, so they weren't sure if all the parents were continuing to read their emails those first couple weeks. We also made sure that they invited their staff to participate. So we were able to break it down into the two separate groups of staff versus parents, students, community members. And as you can see, the overwhelming response came from parents and students. We actually had 35 current students choose. We don't solicit them to apply, but if the parents invite them to apply, that's their decision. We had 37 staff members. Again, similarly, some of them had gone on summer vacation, but we did get some good hearty responses, I should say. And then people that identified as community members totaled 19, and several of them self-identified as alumni of the school. Because it has been around long enough that there are some students who are now adults that actually went through the middle school program. We invited over 3,865 families to participate, which basically means through student ID. So there might have been some duplicates there, but that's how many student IDs we pitched it to. And as I've shared, it included all of those groups. Our response rate was pretty high. We had 297 individuals respond and 209 fully complete every single question. And this was different than a traditional thought exchange. This was one of the adaptive surveys so that they could really get a little bit more depth. We could ask them some follow-on questions and use the AI interventions to help make sure it restated it. Is this what you really meant to say? Oh, no, I want to clarify kind of piece. Some people like that, some people don't, but it does help us to get better, clearer responses from families and participants. As you can see, the overwhelming percentage was 69% identifying as a parent or guardian, and the overwhelming majority, 60% and 52% respectively, identified as being associated with either the K-5 or 6-8 programs at Hillburn Drive Academy. The families, so when we isolated the thoughts and the sort of the participant comments from those that identified as parents or students, we could tell that the community and school environment was extremely important, the academic and extracurricular opportunities that are unique in this programming, and we'll talk about that in the leadership insights in just a moment, and the logistical and financial considerations. Having both of your students on the same campus, there are some benefits to that, perhaps riding the same bus in the mornings, being able to pick everybody up at the same location, and so some are also concerned as to whether or not, on the other side of financial discussions, if the cost savings to the district is sufficient enough for the type of disruption that this might provide to families. They wanted you to kind of think about, is that a good cost benefit? And so I think both sides of that angle kind of came up. When we looked at the next group, which was the staff, again, community came up and relationships. It's clear that when you get to know your students from kindergarten through 8th grade, there's just a stronger bond in the community. And again, when we get to leadership insights, we'll talk about how some of that is formed. The academic opportunities and resources having slightly more individualized, there is a sense, I'm not sure if it's actually true, but a feeling that the class sizes are smaller at the school. Certainly the cohort sizes are smaller at the school, and that the school identity and future, just being thoughtful about, is this really a long-term solution for the community? What would this do to Hillburn if you were to remove the program? Do we have a good plan in place to support the school if we were to do such a significant program adjustment? Because it is, while not exactly, it would feel like a school closure for some of these families because their middle school would no longer be on that campus and it would be somewhere else. When we looked at the group that specifically said, we're community members, we don't actively have students at the school, we're not actively working at the school, but we are in the community around the school, or maybe potentially alumni, they again talked about that community sentiment and how the sense of community that is built in a school like a K-8 program. And they actually brought out some unique highlights. I think they came out in some of the parent comments, but what's it going to feel like for the students that have to merge to the new campus? How are we going to be able to support them as they have to integrate into a new social group, or especially a rising 8th grader or a rising 7th grader as they have to become part of a whole new school structure later in their middle school career? And again, the same kind of question: is the cost savings enough to justify the change? When we looked at the additional leadership insights, this is where we really had Glenn really had some meaningful conversations, not only with Principal Caswell, but also some area superintendents, and just thinking about what makes this different. This is a significant and impactful transition, different from any of the others that we've brought before you, which is why they're the last on the toolkit. It would, again, like I said, feel like a school closure. There wouldn't be stability options for these students if the program ceased to exist. They'd have to go to whatever the new school is. We could be generous with transfers to other programs, but certainly there wouldn't be a way to stay home and age forward. And we have talked about that financially and academically. There's just no way to roll it out, if you will, like let it age out. The students would be harmed academically by the lack of resources available to support them. The impacts on the K-5 program, this is part of that community. Because it is a K-8 school, some of the 6 through 8 teachers are available to support some of the older students, like 3 through 5, in CTE type courses that normally an elementary student wouldn't have access to. In addition, because you have middle school teachers on campus, any single subject acceleration for a 4th or 5th grader that needs to go to, let's say, a 6th grade or a 7th grade program, they can go. They're not on a virtual program. They're not, having to have a cohort of 30 students to make it work. They actually get that unique advantage of being able to have access to those highly qualified teachers and to provide those extra. So again, looking down, it provides extra elective opportunities for the younger students, and looking up, it provides, enriched academic opportunities in the core programs for the older students. You're going to have reduced opportunities at the middle school level. While certainly a larger, more comprehensive middle school might have on paper more elective choices, because it's a smaller cohort, they can take the same class twice, like a Pottery 1 and a Pottery 2, where maybe in a larger comprehensive high school, because of the way the math works and the master schedules, you might get one hit and then never get to come back to it because you have to keep rotating through all the different electives. So the quality and depth of the elective access for students is perceived to be much higher. And of course, the student-teacher ratios are a little bit lower at the school. And then, of course, maybe not of course to you, but of course to me, if we were to suddenly have available space in the building, the school would then appear on paper to be woefully under-enrolled. And so we would seek to do some boundary adjustments to expand the elementary attendance area if we take any kind of action. So just a lot of shifting on this.
So important, I think there's additional factors that continue to be identified. And so as we get to the next slide, we'll talk about our proposed recommendations. Just jumping ahead, 2028 for staff would be an ideal time to bring to you the time to make this particular change, because within the next 2 calendar years, we can look at what could be the long-term plan for this particular project. Do we look at just moving the 6 through 8? Do we look at the K through 5 as well? Do we look at bringing other base attendance areas in and then shifting students in other areas? I think it gives us good time to really look at the long-term forecast, look at the facility of the buildings in the areas. Are there ways to be more efficient with what we've got? Because we do know that the numbers will be reducing over time. And we do know that our funds that are coming in from the county will be, at least stagnant, if not reducing over time. So how do we find a long-range plan that will best suit the district long-term?
And I think with that.
With that, we'll open up to questions, Steve. So I'm going to let Mr. Harry digest some, take a breath for 1 second. I have a question right off the bat. Let's say we decide in 2028 that we're going to end the 6 through 8. When would that decision be made? I have 2 questions. That would be made, what month? So we would recommend putting it in the 28-29 enrollment plan, so that would happen during the 27-28 school year, starting generally late August, early September.
Following normal.
We would make a decision for a year from now. Correct. Well, we wouldn't start discussing it, and then you wouldn't vote on it for 18 months. You'd vote on November 27th. Okay. So what happens, since we're having this conversation, if a bunch of parents see either the writing on the wall, let's say
That's a very
and then they
good
start
question.
then the 6 through 8 students start to go, and now we have a reduced capacity, or reduced numbers, how do we make sure that those students that are still there get the same academic opportunities?
That is correct, Claire.
So Susan's in charge of the world, right? We would say, let's not make any decisions hastily. If we're going to follow through what we think is the best path forward, that would let us go back to the drawing board, let us look at all of the options for the facility, and give you a comprehensive recommendation for the 28-29 school year that may or may not include removing the 6 through 8 program. If you feel like removing the 6 through 8 program is the solution, then we would argue you'd probably want to go ahead and move forward, because you're exactly right. If people think it's going to happen, then behaviors will change and it'll become very hard. Not only, staff will start going, well, if I don't know if I'm going to be here for another year, I might look for that CTE job somewhere else. Or if I don't know that my 6th grader is going to be here for 7th grade, I might start them somewhere else. And so if you're feeling in your gut that that's what you're going to, really guide staff to do, then we certainly would want to expedite that timeline. As much as it's dissatisfying to the community, let's give them information sooner rather than later. But if you're really open to letting us go to the drawing board and figuring out what is the future of this facility, and coming back with something that might be creative and different, then we would ask for that space and time.
You've often heard us say the hardest thing to predict is parent choice.
Not always.
And so, you would have a period of inefficiency when it comes to, your cost per student or whatnot, because we would want to make sure that we're continuing with the academic level that they need, despite them maybe not earning the months of employment that they would from the state.
I'd actually like to ask the principal a question, if I may.
Do you want her to come forward so she can be on the mic?
Yeah, she would
It's up
like
to
to.
She's ready.
Sure, thank you. Do you feel like this is going to come as a surprise, this conversation? I find it hard to believe that the families are going to get wind of this conversation today and be like, wait, what? They know that you're under-enrolled. At the middle school level. So can you give us a sense of what the temperature is with families, what communications have taken place, or?
Yeah, so I've had people, I've been at Hilburn for a year, and community members and parents have asked, hey, every once in a while they talk about this. And, what I've reassured them of is that there is a process. And then, come forward a year, I think they were surprised that the conversation started quickly. And so now the question is this going to happen? If so, when? I was like, I just keep reassuring them that there is a process and that, we're going to follow the process. But no, it's not a surprise overarching. The surprise was that it came up and just happened very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does that answer?
Does anyone else have any
If
questions?
you have anything to
before
add,
I get
I
this?
mean-
I'm going to see what anyone else, because I'm going to give
Sure.
Chris some time to ask some questions. Does anyone else have any questions first? Yes. Mr. Haggerty, sorry.
Thank you. No. So this is a difficult conversation because in 8 years on the Board of Education, I will say the school culture at Hilburn Academy is the best that I've seen in any school. have a lot of schools that might get mad at me for calling out a favorite.
It's okay to tell the truth.
But it really does make a difference, and they've had different leadership over the years, but the culture has remained constant. And I've known many parents who've had some apprehension about sending an elementary school student to a school that has middle school students. But based on my time in the building and what I've observed and talking to parents there, talking to staff and administrators there, those middle school students are the most respectful middle school students that I've seen in any public school, especially with their treatment of those K-5 students. And when you talk about all of the behavioral norms and expectations that we have for our students, those really are reflected in that school. And so the timeline seems a little bit off, because when my son started school, it was that 2012-2013 year, and we visited Hillburn, and Hillburn was being marketed as a K-8 school. And I even remember my wife had very specific reservations about a kindergartner going to the same school as 7th and 8th graders. But it works. And, you know, I've wondered, as the school has struggled with under-enrollment, we see so many middle schools in this area suffer from under-enrollment. A lot of parents take their kids out of public schools and will try a charter school, a private school, maybe even some homeschooling for those middle school years before returning to public schools for high school. I've wondered, could that K-8 program have achieved full enrollment if it had been more of an application program, right? Because there are parents that live outside of the assignment area that have interest in it, but it's not a magnet. It's not an application program. Oftentimes, though, when I have parents that have had a very specific family situation that's come up with a school where they've really needed, they want to stay in the public school system in the area, but they've really asked for maybe a smaller, not necessarily a smaller classroom, but a smaller school setting.
Right.
I've recommended Hillburn to them. So the school, and specifically the program, have a lot of value, I believe, and it serves an important role. I have a hard time with the numbers, though, and struggling with those numbers and the enrollment. And on its current trajectory, I don't think you can keep the middle school going at under 50%. So an option of conversion is probably one of the most realistic options for the school in terms of, you saw the $750,000 a year in projected savings. You see the under-enrollment in the neighboring middle schools, Pine Hollow, Leesville Road, even like Carroll, and you get to East Millbrook, and everybody but West Millbrook, right? So you can justify the program, or you can justify the conversion in terms of efficiency, in terms of dollars. If parents are concerned about it, the conversion wouldn't save nickels and dimes. It would save a significant amount of money, though I hate to lose the program, and I would love to see the program exist somewhere in the county, particularly where you had applications, and families all over the county could benefit from it. We were just there, Principal Caswell knows, they have a program with the middle school students where they do resumes and job interviews. And those students just present themselves so well, I'd put them up against any high school students in terms of like their preparation, their confidence, their ability to look adults in the eye and present. It really is a wonderful program. I understand the realities, though. So the questions that I would have would be about what a transition would look like. It sounds like what Ms. Pulliam was saying, you couldn't just age them out, like just stop taking 6th grade and then let everyone run through the program. So if it would come to an abrupt end, I think we would need, and I see the argument, if you let it go too long, then people self-select out. But if you just do it tomorrow, it's such a radical transition for a lot of parents that maybe just enrolled in the school, it's like a bait and switch. So I think you do need some transition time. And again, we still don't know exactly what the program will be and what will come behind it. If you remove all of those middle school students from the elementary school and you reassign them to one of the neighboring middle schools, then Hilburn Elementary now has an incredible amount of capacity. And what do you do with that capacity? You know, if you look at schools in the area, it's really interesting. There are a lot of important programs within close proximity that are busting at the seams, right? Stowe has their immersion program with Chinese that we're constantly turning students away from. Jeffries Grove has the immersion program in Spanish where we're constantly turning students away from them. Both of those programs, I know, kind of then struggle to feed into a middle school that has the same environment. You know, a Hilburn Academy, actually, if you're looking K through 8, would, in a smaller setting, could probably support maybe that smaller immersion program in either language or both. But, you know, what I would hate to see is then the health of that school K-5 dwindle and suffer because of the removal of those middle school students and just having a big empty elementary school now. So I'd like to see, concurrent with plans for conversion, what the plan is for filling those elementary school seats. Because it's not like there's a lot of elementary schools nearby busting at the seams that could just easily be pushed in as well. We have a few areas, particularly with some long-range assignments, right? We have some kids going to Briar Creek that live all the way out near Laurel Hills, right? There's some other cases where we could bring some of those kids in closer. But I'd want to see a plan, and I'd love to see some way that we could keep both a K-8 program available in the district. You might have to set it up somewhere else in the future. I'd love to see that offered sometime again, and I'd love to see a way to preserve kind of what they have accomplished there on the Hill at Hilburn Academy. Because, again, you see all of that feedback. It's very positive and it's very genuine. So I don't have an answer, but my concerns would be how we fill the elementary school program. Are there program demands that can be filled? Is there a way to replicate the K-8 somewhere else, even in a smaller setting, in maybe one of our specialty schools? And then again, how would it happen in terms of, we have some dates now, looking at like a decision in the maybe 27-28 assignment plan to go into effect fall 2028, but then just making sure those families of those affected middle schoolers do know in advance and can make, you know, a proper choice.
So under its current demographics, the school doesn't qualify for our traditional magnet programming, right? But that doesn't mean we can't rule out possible curriculum enhancements or something like that. So that could be one of the avenues we look to explore as well.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Hegley brought up the idea or the mention of application school. It got me thinking, you know, because I've never been there, but from your description of it, it sounds very much like a private school. You know, I don't want to, you know, I'm not proposing that that's the case, but
You don't want me to jump across the
I
table?
know, but I mean, you know, in terms of the way that it's structured,
Yeah.
and the, you know, I just wonder, I'm wondering out loud about, the option of an application process that would attract people in via certain, programs that can be offered that would make it desirable. And there are people in Mooresville, Apex, who are wanting to go to a traditional calendar school. They can't because of the busting at the seam. But if they have a place that they can go for like STEM or something that would really attract kids to go to that school. So I don't know if there's to study the impact of that kind of a concept on the remaining adjacent middle schools, will that cause an even further under-enrollment in some of those other schools? You know, that's my concern.
Ms. Edmonds?
I do think, to your point, I do think we are only going to have to be more and more creative as our budget constraints get worse and worse, and I think that they will in the near term. And I'm wondering if part of this conversation shouldn't include considering not closing the program, the middle school program, but opening it to application. And one thing I'm wondering about is, I understand how that works with the magnets, but is it possible to open it up to application without being a magnet school, and even perhaps not providing transportation? I understand state law, we're a public school, we have to provide transportation, I get that. But we do have some restrictions and limitations when we do that with magnets. Like it might be express busing, it's not, door to door. So I don't know if that's something that we could explore, because I think we are going to have to think outside the box and get more and more creative and competitive, because we do have all this competition that we did not have when this school opened. So there's lots of different factors.
So Mrs. Edmonds, what I would say is that as a district, we certainly have our policy that governs the magnet program. But as a board, you certainly have the flexibility to write any policy that you want for a specialty school. So I'll consult with our legal group to see what kind of things we would need to do if we do that. This is the information that I wanted to hear from the board in terms of what the future would be for Hillburn Academy. We know that my experience has been that most K-8 schools are a result of geography. School that's isolated and it's hard to get people to other locations. But this is a little different. We recognize that things have changed over this 10 to 12 year period. And so we want to make sure that we're very mindful of what that process looks like going forward. So I'm glad to hear the conversation that I'm hearing from the board, the idea of a specialty school and how we can explore that and ultimately open it up. If there's something different that we're thinking about, then we know this current program in the middle school portion is becoming increasingly more difficult. The last thing I'll say to the board is there's certainly a cost savings if you do away with that. But I'm a firm believer that everything is not about the dollars and cents, and I know this board knows that. So we will explore those ideas and those options that now are appearing here, and I think we certainly have way more than enough time to be able to do this and do it in a fashion that we can inform our public and have them as a part of the decision. But this is what we wanted to hear from the board.
What's the capacity again for middle school, and what's it at?
I'm looking at now I got somebody who can answer the question.
The middle school. Just the middle school.
Just the middle school.
So, Hillside,
Hillburn.
Hillburn, getting the wrong line here. Capacity is 208.
That's the brick and mortar, right?
No, that was middle school.
Yep.
That sounds about right.
No, that's about right. Yeah.
Capacity is 208 in the building. With trailers, it's 338.
And what is it right
So
now?
the projection was for the year, the allotment was 164, which is at 48.5.
Less than, you
We're
said.
not quite there.
We're at about 140 for this coming year. If I can, I will also note that we've never been at 338 in our middle school. I think the highest.
275, I think, was something 275, 265, something that first year when they started all three.
Yes, with all three, and then it went down to like 220 or something like that. And I would say that would be a sweet spot, 220.
So my two thoughts are, one, I would like to see as part of this, a comprehensive plan for all the capacity of those middle schools. Are we looking at other schools? Why just Hillburn Academy? If one school if we decide that one school is at 50% or 55% and those students can go everywhere else, I think we have to have a comprehensive plan. I prefer a comprehensive plan rather than a one. My other thought, and this is more for the public and the parents of the school, I want them to understand that that this board, they correct me if I'm wrong, but I am looking at all programs throughout the whole district. They are not being singled out because to Ms. Edmonds' point, we have massive, potentially really hard, tough budgets coming up. And we're talking about cuts again because we remain, despite, or yes, we got some teacher pay raises, but we're still majorly underfunded as a school system, as a state, still at the bottom. And so and if we have these tax amendments and there's a ton of pressure in the Blue Ridge loophole, my board comments are largely going to be about this for the next 3 months. I think that we have to start warming people up that there's going to be some really difficult decisions coming. So we're not just looking at Hillburn Academy, we're looking throughout the whole county. I don't want them to feel like, why are they just looking at us? It's important for them to know that we're not. And I'm sorry for everyone else to hear that we have to look at everything. And I'll close with saying it's also good government if we do look at everything. And we look at how we're spending, where we can be more efficient in our building capacity for any and all programs. And I think that's good government that we should be doing regardless of the budget. And I'm going to close with that because we got a closed session, so instead of just adjourning, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session for the reasons stated on the agenda.
Second.
I'm looking at the vice chair.
Who made the motion? All those in favor to go into closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are in closed session. Thank you all very much for being here, and we got to get closed fast. So, thank you.